My name is Jillian Rooks, and my Capstone Project overview is in partial fulfillment of the Education Specialist in Instructional Technology degree program at Kennesaw State University. The title of my study is Blended Learning Models in an Elementary Setting. This project is intended to extend our understanding of the usefulness of technology in the classroom, as well as provide data to support the inclusion of blended learning models in elementary settings. According to researcher Garrison, in the early years of blended learning, it was relegated to colleges and higher education. However, as access to the internet and the number of computers in homes or even in pockets grows, so does the insistence that blended learning should be part of the K-12 education. So by using an online program called MobyMax, which was developed for K-12 learners, I determined the correlation between time spent on an online learning platform and student progress on reading objectives in a fourth grade classroom. This data should help support the use of a blended learning model. The overarching question is how effective can self-paced blended learning models be in elementary settings? The following research questions will be answered in order to support my findings. Number 1, what is the magnitude and direction of the correlation between time spent on MobyMax and student grade equivalent level growth? What do students' attitudes towards MobyMax suggest about a self-paced learning model in elementary settings? The participants in this study were 54 students from 2 different fourth grade classes with the same team of teachers. Participants were selected based on their placement in a combined English Language Arts Social Studies classroom. The students attend a public middle school and are below or on academic grade level in reading. There is a variety of literature resources available on the blended learning model. I tried to focus on studies which included reading due to that being my variable, though I did include other subject content as well to support the blended reading in all subject areas. An example of literature from the report Effectiveness of Using iPads to Build Math Fluency shows positive impact that integrating technology can have on student motivation and achievement in learning basic math facts. And some of the literature, such as a study published in 2013, the EAT portfolio supporting primary students' writing performance and peer feedback, was more focused on online learning, which is a component of blended learning. More importantly, educators are finding that the use of technology increases student engagement and empowers individualized instruction. One particular area of literature that I went back to was by Jung and Latcham in 2011, because the findings were that the impact of a blended learning environment to be beneficial to the students was if it was implemented correctly, such as if the school had one-to-one computer-to-student ratios. This particular study helped me understand why my results were not what I expected them to be. The literature supporting online education and a blended learning model is continuing to grow. There's still much to be researched about a self-paced learning model where students are allowed to work at their own pace at their ability level. This study will add to that conversation, as well as the overarching theme of using technology as a teaching tool in the K-12 classroom. This research study is both qualitative and quantitative, which is a mixed methods research. I use the correlational model, which is a research model in which 2 variables are measured to determine the association between the 2 variables. A survey was also completed to gain insight about the students' attitudes toward online learning. Students were given access to the website MobyMax. Students were given a baseline assessment for the grade equivalent measure. Once students were assigned a placement, they received online instruction in small increments, often as games and lessons. And the computer program compiled the time the students spent on the lessons, and then the students applied what they learned on the post-assessment. The data set was then applied to the Pearson correlation coefficient function, which calculated the correlation. Students were also asked to complete a survey in Google Forms. The following are the questions and statements students were asked to complete. Number 1, do the technology resources in the classroom meet your needs? Number 2, do you have blended learning in the classroom, which is both teacher instruction and online learning? Number 3, I like doing reading on MobyMax. Number 4, I like working on MobyMax more than just working on reading in the classroom. Number 5, I feel frustrated when I get stuck on MobyMax. And number 6, I feel more motivated to learn when I have a blend of online learning and face-to-face learning. The survey responses were either yes or no. Overwhelmingly, the students had positive attitudes toward online learning. Integrating technology into today's schools is just one way of meeting the needs of all the learners. Research has shown that blended learning models to be an effective practice, though this particular study does not support these findings. The results of this study conclude that the amount of time spent working is only slightly correlated to student progress in the self-paced blended learning model. This correlation does not support allowing students to use self-paced learning methods to supplement their traditional reading instruction. It also shows the survey to be irrelevant due to the lack of the correlation. However, the findings do not in any way suggest that blended learning is not a viable option for elementary settings, just that with this particular study, that there is just a slight correlation between the two. This study creates a call to teachers to be thoughtful as they design a path for the blended learning model of instruction. This call is to not just send students to computer labs with no intervention or observation, but rather with a careful supervision of a teacher to allow the students to work independently along with direct instruction. Overall, I did not get the results that I had hoped for. I have a class of students who throughout the year have showed little effort, and my team teacher and I have done numerous things to help increase this effort. I wonder if the study was done on another group of students, if the results would be the same or not. And I also wonder if I did it for a longer period of time in collecting the data, if that would make any difference. In reflecting back on my capstone experience, overall it was positive. Due to my personal need to spread out the classes in the program, my capstone project ended up being extended over a year, and it made it a little difficult to make a fluid transition from the proposal to the implementation stage. Different students in my class prompted me to end up changing my focus, and the project still remained along the general idea I first came up with, but I did narrow it down to something more specific. After doing numerous researches on the flipped classroom and then blended learning, I've come to understand how important it is to understand technology and be in the know-how how to teach this generation of learners. Completing the capstone was meaningful because I was able to research something I was interested in, and I can also apply it to my own classroom.